Back to this special edition of NBC 4's news conference. With us representing the Hillary Clinton for President campaign, the Honorable Adam Schiff, member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Democrat of Burbank. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So what happens if you win, your candidate wins the California primary?
Well, she goes forward with a great deal of momentum. She has, I think, the popular vote, millions more votes than Senator Sanders at this point. She has a large lead in delegates, both pledged delegates and superdelegates. But I think it helps with the momentum going into the convention. But it's going to all depend on who turns out on Tuesday. The polls are very close. We expect it to be a very close race. Each side is out there trying to turn out their vote. We had a rally this weekend with Bill Clinton to turn out the vote, and it will all be determined by who shows up at the polling stations.
Right. Well, conversely, if she doesn't do well, she's weakened, correct? If you lose the California primary, which, by the way, no state, as you well know, is as closely aligned with the demographics of the country as a whole than this one.
Well, she is expected to win, I think, quite handily in New Jersey. So if she goes forward into the convention having won New Jersey and narrowly lost California, it wouldn't be ideal, but it's not going to change the fundamental math at this point. But we would love to see her with the momentum of a victory here in California as well as on the East Coast. And go into that convention as strong as possible.
Well, let me ask you a question I asked Jeff Weaver of the Sanders campaign. If New Jersey comes in for her 3 hours ahead of the polls closing here, and the networks are saying she's the presumptive nominee because she hits the 70 delegate mark out of New Jersey, does that influence turnout, not just for him, but actually for you?
Well, it could, and that's why we're urging people, regardless of what they announce when the polls close in New Jersey, it's essential to vote. Vote to be heard in the presidential race, so California can have its say in the presidential race. But also there are a lot of very important down-ticket races, and the turnout for those races could be determinative about who goes on to the general election. So we really urge people to vote no matter what happens and what they announce in New Jersey.
How many of your colleagues on the Democratic side in the House and in the Senate are saying to you privately, listen, what is he doing? Why is he still in this race? We got a nominee. She's got millions more votes. She's trying to go after Trump in the fall, but this is not stopping. And you look at her rallies, and some of her rallies, you talk to some of those folks, and they say, I'll never vote for Hillary Clinton.
Well, the interesting thing is we had a very competitive Democratic primary 8 years ago with Secretary Clinton and Barack Obama. There were more people in that primary, frankly, who were saying that if Secretary Clinton wasn't the nominee, they would not support Barack Obama than you're hearing from the Sanders people right now. So it was even more divided then. Ultimately, we came together. We will come together after this convention as well. And frankly, I don't think there's anyone who's going to unify more than Donald Trump. We see through the outrages on a daily, weekly basis that come out of Mr. Trump's mouth, frankly, the imperative of defeating him. And I find it staggering that this is the first time, I think, in the modern history of the Republican Party they have nominated someone so patently unfit to be commander-in-chief to lead the free world.
Right now we're talking, though, about your campaign in the Democratic primary. The fact of the matter, though, is that Hillary Clinton faces criticism not just from Donald Trump, but also from Bernie Sanders, who seems to mention her more than he mentions him. And he makes the argument, and every poll that we've seen indicates that he does better against Donald Trump than she does. And that is the argument he makes to the superdelegates, by which you were one of. I don't know if you received a phone call from the Bernie Sanders campaign saying, why don't you switch your allegiance? But why is it, do you think, that Bernie Sanders, according to every survey we've seen, does better in the fall than your candidate?
Oh, I think it's very clear. If you look at who have the Republicans been going after in this campaign, they're not going after Bernie Sanders. In fact, they would love to run against Bernie Sanders. So the only negatives, frankly, that Bernie has been confronted with is in some of the exchanges with Secretary Clinton. Secretary Clinton, on the other hand, has had the Republicans going after her not only her whole career, but intensively over the last several years since she left the Secretary of State's office, precisely because they know what a formidable candidate she is. So there's no mystery about who the Republicans want to run against. If the Republicans believe those polls, they would be attacking Bernie, not Secretary Clinton. And you see quite a different result.
Let's talk about her speech in San Diego this past week on foreign policy, but it was an attack on Donald Trump. She got a lot of credit. Many people said that was the best speech she had given in the campaign. she needs to keep doing something like that if she's actually to win the White House. Do you agree with that?
I agree. A phenomenal speech at several levels. It certainly was a harsh indictment of Trump
Can she keep that up?
In his own words. She can't keep it up, absolutely. And I'll tell you what really resonated with me that she said, and this is the kind of thing I would encourage the Secretary to do more of. In that long litany of Trump statements and the damage it's done to our foreign policy already, she highlighted one in particular that really struck me, and that is she said that here you have a candidate, Donald Trump, who thinks we ought to be murdering the family members of our enemies. Well, if you look at that raid and those on Abbottabad, on Osama bin Laden, those Navy SEALs moved the women and children out of harm's way. And Donald Trump may not realize this, but that is what honor looks like. And when I heard the Secretary say that, when I saw her say that, I thought, you know, that's what presidential looks like. And I think that's why it was such a powerful speech.
Adam Schiff, member of the U.S. House of Representatives, Democrat from Burbank, ranking member, House Intelligence. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Conan.